one.
The 10-8 boys are bloodied but unbowed. It's late in the week, but you know we're not going to let the week go by without some fire content for you 10-8 maniacs. I am Zach from sunny, filthy Philadelphia. That's not sunny here. I'm lying. And that is John Boy in the actually sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. John Boy, what's going on? What's
It's
up?
going good, man. It's good to be sitting here with you. We got a late card on the forecast this week.
There we go.
So if you got that Kill Cliff back there, you got a little Red Bull stashed in the fridge. You might need it for this Saturday. We got a 10 p.m. start time, Eastern Standard Time, Saturday night.
Yeah, that's cruel.
Main card goes off at 1 a.m. So you're coming back from a little bender. Throw on ESPN Plus. You'll have some UFC fights going on.
Yeah, that's cruel and unusual, especially for the card that they're bringing us. That is cruel and unusual. But look, we scare because we care. So if you're out there on a little bit of a load, you're at Miller's Ale House with the boys, you're pounding back a couple Dos Equis, maybe put the DraftKings away, don't drink and bet. Don't bet the mortgage. That's the sound advice for the evening. But if you are going to bet the mortgage, let your buddies at the 10-8 guide your hand. Been a long week, John Boy. I'm gonna need to pop this Kill Cliff CBD open here. Yeah,
I have a feeling that's going to do the trick right for you. It's going to calm the nerves. You'll be even keel. Whew.
I feel better already. I really do.
So I believe this card was supposed to be in Singapore. Something fell through. I believe Derek Lewis got COVID. The card kind of fell apart. UFC is definitely showcasing their Asian talent here. A lot of South Korean, Japanese fighters, a lot of prospects. Not a ton of name value, but some possible up-and-coming guys.
Yeah, some possible up and coming guys. This is we talked about this off air a little bit. In terms of what this card is, as related to possible sexual encounters you might have in your life. This card is probably you sitting on your hand until it goes numb because you struck out at Miller's. That's what this card is.
Wow.
It's not great, but hey, look, it's a funny story for your buds, and it is what it is. Look, there's fights on. You're gonna watch them. That's just the way it goes.
I mean, coming home Saturday night, kind of turning it on, might be a little sauced up. There could be worse stuff on TV as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not mad at it. We'll see how it goes. If I got to catch the Monday morning recap, I will.
It could be the move. It could be the move. That's what we're saying. If nothing else, the main event should be, I don't want to say fun because I feel apprehensive. The main event will be a main event.
It says main event. It'll be 5 rounds.
It will be listed for 5 rounds.
It'll be less than 5 rounds.
It will be less than 5 rounds. Yeah, Derek Lewis is stepping in against Sergey Spivac. I'm going to beat you to the punch at your own game here. I'm going to guess that Sergey Spivac is the favorite.
He is minus 220. Have you seen Derek Lewis as of late?
He looks thin.
He looks like a fucking middleweight, not a middleweight, a light heavyweight though.
Yeah, he looks like he stopped utilizing the Popeyes black card that he has been so proud of. Let's put
100%. I mean, yeah. He definitely is starting to lean down, right? He's coming off of 2 bad losses, 2 TKOs, Tai Tuivasa second round knockout, and Sergey Pavlovich knockout in his last fight. No, those aren't bad losses by any means, but definitely looks like he needs a little change of pace going forward. Who are you liking this one?
I like Sergey Spivac. I'm a Sergey Spivac kind of guy. I think the polar bear is a cool nickname. He TKO'd Greg Hardy, and I thought that was kind of a public service. So I think my brain tells me this should be a Sergey night. But we once again are forced to grapple with the reality that is Derek Lewis, right? Which is just at any time he throws one of those lunchbox size hands over the top, he throws you an over top right. It's lights out for the polar bear. So I'm torn a little bit here. My brain is telling me Spivac is the move, but I don't know. This could be the comeback that Derek Lewis needs. He's looking svelte. Looks like he trimmed up a little bit. Maybe that's going to help the gas tank a little bit. I don't know. What do you think? Could this be Derek Lewis 2.0?
Here's the thing with Lewis, right? Like people say the kryptonite is to get him on the ground, but a lot of guys have failed to do so. I mean, his last two fights he lost on the feet.
Yeah.
So these are guys that are willing to strike. These are guys that are willing to engage. If they can kind of take his best shots, then he starts to go away. He doesn't really battle through adversity well. I guess the question for you would be: do you think Sergey Spivak can strike with Derek Lewis?
I mean, I think he can. I mean, he struck with some big guys. Almost all of his wins are by TKO in the UFC. He has one decision win over Alexei Olenek and one submission victory over Tai Tuivasa. But then you look at his losses, right? You got Marcin Tybura and Tom Aspinall in there. They're not nobodies, but it tells me that there is a path to victory for Derek Lewis to just kind of throw those haymakers at him.
I remember Walt Harris caught him early in his
Walt
UFC
Harris
career,
fought him.
kind of a similar style as a Derek Lewis type of guy.
Yeah.
Derek Lewis's motivation seems to be at an all-time high. Um, I think a lot of Spivak's TKOs too have actually come when he gets the guy on the ground and then he punishes him with elbows and strikes from top.
Yeah.
Derek Lewis plus 185. There's something that wants me to do it just for the unknown element that Derek Lewis brings to the table. I could see him catching Spivak, but I don't know. I don't know if that's enough for me to do it. If this gets out of one, if this gets out of two, longer it goes, the better for Spivak. I think coming on here, I had an initial lean to Derek Lewis, but the more we get into it, I think I'm gonna lean with the polar bear here.
I think it's a fair lean. But like you, I am sitting here wondering what is Derek Lewis's motivation level looking like? I don't know if you saw, but he actually, he chirped back at DC because DC was out here kind of talking about how Derek Lewis's best days were behind him. This was the end of Derek Lewis, and Lewis kind of fired back at him. So you got to imagine this is a motivated Derek Lewis, and I think this is kind of a do or die for him. I mean, he's 26-10. That's
No, agreed.
a lot of great wins, but there's a lot of losses in there too. So this is probably, you're looking at kind of a make or break night for Derek Lewis, which makes him a very dangerous man in that cage.
Yeah, right. He said something along the lines of, I guess that's what you say when you have high cholesterol, to DC, which is fun for. I mean, Derek Lewis is always going to chirp back. This is a tough one, man. It's just that unknown with Derek Lewis. He knocked out Curtis Blades, who, in my opinion, is just like a more sharp Sergey Spivak, essentially, right? Just a cleaner, bigger, elite version of Sergey Spivak, and Lewis got the job done with him. Maybe wait till weigh-ins, let him face off, see kind of what Derek Lewis is looking like. But early lean, we're gonna go with Sergey Spivak here.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna throw a note on Derek Lewis, I think you got to know you're doing it with the idea in mind that you're betting on Derek Lewis's motivation, right? You're betting on Derek Lewis kind of beating the test of time here. So just know that going into it. Nothing wrong with that, but know that going in.
Exactly. Yeah, you're betting on a right hand coming through, and if the
Exactly.
right hand doesn't come through, you're dead.
There are worse bets to make, but just know that that's your bet.
Yeah.
How do you feel about we got Da Un Young taking on Devin Clark right on the heels of that? That's your co-main event for the evening.
It's a little decent matchup. Da Un Young is a pretty promising prospect.
Yeah.
You have an idea who Vegas likes here?
I would think that Vegas likes Da Un.
They do. He's sitting at minus 245. You got Devin Clark, kind of like a run of the mill fighter. He's another guy, though, who can come out looking really good, and then he can come out just looking awful.
Yeah.
Whenever you have that unknown element, that unknown variable, it's hard to trust a guy. So with that being said, I'm going to side with the younger prospect in Daun. I think he's a little bit, he is more well-rounded. He's younger. I feel like his career trajectory is going up. I'm going to side with Jung for sure here. How about you?
I I agree with you, but there is something. He does have a draw on his record, and it gives me pause.
I know who it's going to be. Sam Alvey, right?
Smiling Sam Alvey. Now whether or not that should have been a draw is up for debate. But I don't know. It's one of those things. I see draw Sam Alvey on your record. I pause. I freeze.
Completely fair. I think it was it was an eye poke though too. It was one of those eye poke fights.
Yeah, those eye poke fights do tend to gum the works up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you know, he's been around the UFC for 3 years. He's got some wins under his belt. You know, he's got a win over Kennedy Unjaka, which is not nobody.
It's a good win.
Off of that was, yeah, it's a good win, right? But it's 2 years ago. Yeah, I think Daun is the right call here. I really do.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah,
we
I mean,
got
I think
who else
Devin
we got going down the line?
Oh, let's see. Well, Devin Clark, just so the viewers at home know, Devin Clark is 1-3 in his last four as well. So that's just, and it doesn't get much better as you stretch that record out. You know, he's one of those guys. It's like for every two losses, he'll get a win in there. Is the kind of fighter that Devin Clark is. So I'm more comfortable now with siding with Daun. But we got some more big boys. We got Marcin Tybura taking on Blagoy Ivanov.
Stabbed through the heart, Blagoy Ivanov.
Blagoy Ivanov.
Yeah, I have a cardinal rule where I don't bet against fighters who have been stabbed in the heart and live.
Yeah.
So for that reason alone, I'm not going to go against Blagoy Ivanov here. You think Vegas is on his side, or are they leaning with Tybura here?
I think Vegas is on his side. I'm going to say I think Stab Through the Heart is the favorite.
Marcin Tybura is the favorite here, minus 135. This is one of those heavyweight fights that's going to go to decision. Yeah. Blagoy Ivanov is the type of guy who brings you into like quicksand and you kind of just fight in slow motion for 15 minutes. I literally circled when I was looking at the odds for this fight, over 2.5 rounds is minus 225. That's how I would approach this one. He is plus 115. So anytime you get a big heavyweight that's going to go to decision, more often than not, I'm going to side with the underdog just because of how ugly these fights get. So for that reason, give me Stab Through the Heart and over 2.5 minus 225.
Yeah, I like it. You know, especially, I mean, if you look at Blagoy Ivanov's time in the UFC, I mean, he's fought some dudes, and he hasn't always brought away the W's, but he's fought some dudes, right? Fought JDS, beat Ben Rothwell, beat Tai Tuivasa, lost a split to Derek Lewis.
He beat Derek Lewis too.
Right, I think so.
That was a bullshit split.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Ivanov might be the move here. He could be the play. I would feel pretty good about that one. I think that's a fun bet. It's not going to be a fun fight, right? A heavyweight decision is just not. They're never fun to watch.
No, this is going to be ugly. This is two dads at the barbecue.
Yeah,
political disagreements type of vibe.
That's
very, very sweaty.
Oh yeah, a lot of sweat, a lot of heavy breathing, a lot of those punches that just barely glance off the shoulders. That's what you're settling in for here. So you might as well give yourself some vested interest and throw a note on it. You might as well.
Yeah, I feel good with Ivanov here. I mean, yeah, I honestly do. There's nothing spectacular you really see from Marcin Tybura. So I feel good about it. I feel confident in Blagoy.
Well, we got right after that, we got the Korean Superboy, Doo-Ho Choi taking on Kyle Nelson.
This is a fun fight.
This is a fun fight.
This is fight of the night, in my opinion. This is the fight I'm looking forward to the most. Yeah. Not necessarily in terms of who I think is going to go farther in the division, just a fun stylistic matchup. Two guys who are going to bang it out for sure.
Yeah.
Doo-Ho Choi, he used to be honestly like a fan favorite of the UFC. He's had a lot of time off. I believe he had military active service in Korea. So he had a little bit of time off, and he's going up against a guy in Kyle Nelson, who I think a lot of people sleep on. I think the Canadian Kyle Nelson is actually a decent fighter. He's coming off of a 3-round UD loss to Jai Herbert, who's a beast.
Yeah.
Do Choi hasn't been in the ring for a while. He has some skeptical losses, right? He got flatlined by Jeremy Stevens. He has a loss to Cub Swanson. He doesn't really have any great wins either. Charles Jourdain knocked him out, right, in his last fight, I believe, in the second round. You have an idea of where Vegas is leaning here?
I believe that Vegas is going to be leaning towards the monster Kyle Nelson.
They got Do Choi at minus 185.
That's surprising.
Yeah, and that one stuck out to me. I know there are a lot of sharps on Twitter who are on Do Choi here, but I can't get there. This is going to be another underdog play for me, and I'm going to go Kyle Nelson. I think I'm going to side with the more active fighter, a better resume as of late for sure. And yeah, I just like Kyle Nelson here.
Yeah, I mean, between these two guys in their last 9 fights, they've got one win, and it's Kyle Nelson's win over Marco Polo Reyes in 2019.
Yeah.
That was the last time either of these men had their hand raised in the cage.
Kyle Nelson has had some tough fights though, right?
Well, he fought Billy Q right after that and got stopped by Billy Q in the 3rd round, and then he lost a decision to Jai Herbert last July. So,
Yeah.
Herbert,
I mean, Billy Q's stock is through the roof right now. Jai Herbert's only getting better.
Yeah.
He has a loss to Diego Ferreira back in
Yeah.
2018, who Diego Ferreira was a top 5 guy back then. He does have a loss to Matt Sales, but it's in the grappling department. So I don't think Do Choi grapples here. I think stylistically this falls in Kyle Nelson's wheelhouse. And I like that plus 155 price tag.
Yeah, I do too. And Do Ho Choi had, his compulsory military service, which I think, for a lot of the great Korean fighters has kind of derailed them. I think it derailed the Korean Zombie. He was high, flying high, and then compulsory service came up back home. And, I think it really did kind of fucking derail him a little bit. So, and Do Ho Choi was not doing great before the compulsory service. He had lost, I think, 3 in a row. Yeah, 3 in a row. Charles Jourdain, Jeremy Stevens, Cub Swanson, back to back to back. I'm leaning Nelson on this one, and I feel pretty strongly about it.
Yeah, I like it. I'm honestly surprised he's the underdog here. I think other people are going off of name value and just name recognition, period. We'll see. We'll see. People think Kyle Nelson's fraudulent, but I've seen him, dude. The kid can crack.
Yeah.
And Do Choi has been susceptible to getting knocked the fuck out. I've seen him dazed in a lot of fights. I really like this matchup. So
yeah, I think it should be a fun one. Like you said, I think probably fight of the night stylistically. 2 guys that are going to go in there and just throw bombs at each other until one of them drops. That's a fun fight to watch.
what else we got?
It gets dicier the further down this card we go.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have a drink for each fight that passes by.
Yeah, I am running out of things I can say as we get further down the line here. Who else you want to talk about on this card?
Okay, so we got Adam Fugit versus Yusaka Kinoshita.
Mm-hmm.
Kinoshita is a 22-year-old Japanese prospect.
Yep.
He's coming off of a knockout win on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender Series. Adam Fugit is coming off of a 3-round fight, I believe, with Michael Morales. He gets KO'd in the 3rd round. Kinoshita might be a little bit young, right? He might be a little bit raw, but from what I've seen, he's got a knack for finishing. I believe all of his wins are by TKO or KO. 2 submissions, all finishes is what I guess I meant to say. He's a promising prospect. I think he's probably the number 2 prospect on this card. We'll get into the number 1 guy a little bit down the road, but minus 225. I know I didn't ask you this, but that's a solid little price tag. I don't know enough about Fugit. I'm going based off of resume here, but I'm gonna tune in for that one.
Yeah, that's one that's worth tuning in for. I like Kinoshita. I watched his Contender Series. He's a Ryzen guy. who looks like he's trying to kind of make it over to the big time. He also fought on Pancrase. I think he is. I think he's somebody, he's young, but I think there's a lot of talent, a lot of potential in there. And his only loss was a DQ for fence grabbing in Ryzen.
Okay.
That's his sole loss was a fence grab. So
Okay. Let's keep it rolling, right? There's no need to stay on that too long.
no, I'm leaning Kinoshita.
Agreed. We're pretty much aligned here for the majority of this card so far, right? I don't think we've disagreed on a single fight yet.
It's strange.
Uh-oh.
Strange night.
Uh-oh.
I think we have a bet coming up soon that we made though for one of the coming cards, so I know it won't last, and that's what helps me sleep.
I feel very strongly about that bet as well.
Yeah, we can.
Do we divulge that information?
I think it's probably time to divulge it. Let everybody know another gentleman's wager has been cast here on the 10-8 round.
You want to let the people know?
I think you should let the people know.
Kevin Holland,
Yep.
Santiago Ponzinibbio
Yep.
on the back burner. That was just announced. I think Kevin Holland sleeps Santiago.
I think Santiago sleeps Holland.
And that will be a gentleman's bet that I cannot wait to cash on.
Gentleman's wager, $20,
Thank you, sir.
our usual price tag.
I have some lunch money in the not so distant future coming in. That is nice.
I got a lot riding on this one. I think in the gentleman's wagers, it's 2-1 right now in favor of you. So I'm looking to even it up here. And I feel strongly that the Argentine dagger is the man to do that.
Yeah, no, I love Holland in that spot. Love Holland in that spot. It's going to be a smash spot for me. It might be a max bet.
Ooh, max bet. All right.
Yeah.
This is getting fun. I'm into this. I'm into it. I like this spot.
All right. Back to this Saturday, or actually this Sunday. We got Dennis Tiulian and Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle.
Yeah, we do. I love the Iron Turtle.
I like the Iron Turtle too. He's fun because he looks like a guy that you don't really take that seriously, but he kind of brings it. Vegas is siding with him here. I don't know enough about Dennis Tiulian to really get back on it, but I'm gonna back the Iron Turtle here at -225.
Yeah, I mean the Iron Turtle, he's got a win over Eric Anders. He's got a win over Joseph Holmes.
Doesn't he have a win over Devin Clark or no?
Maybe
not.
I don't think so.
Okay.
He's got one over Marc-Andre Barriault, John Phillips. I'm confirming this before. So he lost to Anthony Hernandez
and RoboCop, right?
Yeah, and RoboCop. There's only 2 losses in the UFC, so he's 4-2 in the UFC. I mean, he's no slouch.
Yeah.
I like the Iron Turtle here. I'm ready to rock with him. Sorry, Dennis.
All right, so we're all lined up here.
That's insane to me. Something must be wrong. There's something in the water.
We got next down the line. This might be the only women's fight on the card. We've got Mandy Bohm.
Yep.
From Germany taking on Fireball Ji Young Kim.
Fire Fist.
You got an idea who Vegas likes here?
Mandy Bohm.
They like Fire Fist.
Fuck out of here. Really?
-275. Mandy Bohm +235. I will never back a mid-level women's MMA fight at -275 ever. So you can do with that information what you will. This is not an endorsement of Mandy Bohm whatsoever.
No.
It's more of an endorsement on lay the fuck off of this fight. And for that reason, I'm going to lay off this fight. But if I had to lean one way, I would go with Fire Fist, just from the quality of competition.
Yeah, Fire Fist is 0-4 in her last 4 fights.
Yes.
Alexa Grasso, Molly McCann.
Who just got a title shot, Grasso.
Yeah. And Jocelyn Edwards.
Not great losses, though, either.
No, not great losses. And Antonia Shevchenko as well. So she's 1-5 in her last 6.
Oof.
Yeah, not great. Not great.
Don't love it. No,
but again, right? It's so hard to do MMA math here because you look at 1-5 in your last six and not great losses. But then you consider the fact that Mandy Baum is 0-2 in the UFC, losing to Ariana Lipski and Victoria Leonardo. Right?
Not super horrible, but yeah.
Not super horrible, but not great. You're 0-2, right? You had one win in Bellator, and then you made the jump over here to the UFC, and you've gone 0-2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to pick a win. It's tough to pick a lean.
Yeah, this is one of those fights where it's like somebody has to win, right?
Allegedly.
Maybe watch a draw happen, actually. What's the
draw?
maybe bet draw here? I kind of like that.
I mean, I'm kind of surprised that these two women are still in the UFC. I mean, Mandy Baum, maybe she signed a 4-fight or a 3-fight deal.
Yeah, this is a hand your papers fight though, for sure.
I would think so, right? I mean, Ji Yoon Kim is 1-5 in her last six. Those were all in the UFC. And it doesn't get any better before that. Her first three, she was 1-2. She beat Justine Kish and Melinda Fabian, both by split decision, and lost to Lucy Pudilova.
Oh, Lucy Pudilova.
So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't get a ton better there.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. I don't know. I might maybe go heat up some pizza bagels during this one, get yourself a little midnight snack.
That's fair. You'll have all 15 minutes to do so as well, because this is definitely going to go to the cards.
Yeah.
I got one more fight circled.
Hit me.
This is going to be the first fight of the night. I think the UFC is doing this on purpose at 10 o'clock. This is the pre, but really it's probably the only one that the American audience is going to really solely tune in for. This is the number one prospect out of Japan. I believe he's 22, 23 years old. Tatsuro Tara is just fighting Jesus Aguilar.
Yep.
We got a boxing line here. I think you can guess who the favorite is.
Yeah.
Minus 1,200 against Aguilar, who I believe is coming off of a Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series submission.
Yes.
He can be had for plus 560. I think the UFC knows what they're doing here. I think that this is a not coming out party because Tara already has a couple fights under the UFC banner, but I think that they know he's going to take care of business here, open up the card with a little bit of flashiness and a little bit of a promising prospect. So look for Tatsuro Tara. He could be a possible Japanese star down the line.
Yeah, and I think and it's surprising, right? Because of all the martial arts history in Japan. It's been a while. I don't know that the UFC has ever had like an independent of anything else Japanese star. I mean, they did have Sakuraba for a while, but Sakuraba really made his name in Pride as the Gracie Killer.
Sexy Yama.
Sure. Yeah, you can say that. But, looking at the rise in stardom from Chinese fighters in the last few years, and of course the Korean Zombie out of Korea, it's surprising to me that Japan has not had a UFC star yet, given that is really the birthplace of a lot of these styles, judo and jiu-jitsu, the Kyokushin karate style that Wonder Boy still fights to this day. I'm surprised we have not had that Japanese rising star yet. And I'd love for it to be Tatsuro Tara. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, if there's gonna be one, it's gonna be on this card.
Yeah.
So that's what you can take away from it. Yeah, man, it'll be interesting. He's got a lot of hype behind him. The odds sure as hell back that up as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I'm never gonna bet a 23-year-old fighter at those odds. I just won't. It's a little bit too fresh for me, but tune in. Maybe we'll take something away from it. There could be a next big thing coming out of the card. You never know. So
but that odd is so staggering. You could win the bet and end up owing somebody money. That's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's not good. Just for the sole odds of him like blowing out his ACL in the walk-in, it's not even worth it.
No, not at all. But that's the card. It's not not the best card. It's not. It's got some potential for some firecrackers though. Not fireworks, but firecrackers. If you're an insomniac, if you're pacing the floors, yeah, sparklers, right? It's a sparkler card. It's fun. You'll enjoy it. But for once, for the first time in the duration of this podcast, and probably maybe ever, you probably have a better option Saturday night, and it's not the UFC.
And you don't have to stay up till 1 a.m.
You don't have to stay up till 1 a.m. You could watch Bellator. You could watch Ryan Bader and Fedor Emelianenko do the damn thing one more time.
Last hurrah for the 46-year-old last emperor.
Last emperor. Yeah, lot to unpack there. Overall, a fun card, and I don't know that I know enough about Bellator independently to really give a full analysis, but you got Johnny Eblin, who I believe is an old friend of yours. He's the co-main.
I did sit next to him on a plane coming home from Vegas one time before anybody knew who he was. He was in Masvidal's corner for the Askren fight.
You've got Brennan Ward taking on Saba Hamasi. That should be a good one. Brennan Ward is a lot of fun to watch fight. You got Neiman Gracie. So you got a Gracie on there. It's always kind of fun to see a Gracie fighting. You got Lorenz Larkin taking on Mahmed Berkamov. That should be a good one. Henry Corrales takes on Ahmed Magomedov, who's 9-0 and is a tough customer in Bellator. That's that Magomedov spreading outside of the UFC.
I believe for the wrestling fans, I believe Darian Caldwell's on this card too.
Is Darian Caldwell on this card? Yeah, he is. You are right.
Taking on
so. Nikita Mikhailov. Yeah, I mean, you've got some really fun fights on there. You might want to keep your wallet away. You might not want to break out the DraftKings or the FanDuel on this one, but you've got some fun fights there. That's an interesting night. Yeah, I don't know. How are you feeling about this card?
Yeah, I mean, gun to my head, I'd probably pick this over the UFC for the first time in a while, just because of, there's two belts on the line.
Yep.
I mean, UFC went all, I mean, Bellator knew that the UFC scheduling had this, so they definitely put their best card when it suited the best time for them to do it. I mean, Fedor's a legend, right? Fedor's a legend of the game. You're talking Mount Rushmore status in terms of like MMA impact. So 46-year-old Fedor, glad that this is his last fight. It looks like he's pretty content going out on these terms. He's pretty content this is going to be his last one. Could he end with some fireworks? I wouldn't surprise me if he clipped Ryan Bader and knocked him out. Plus 300 too.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah, a tiger is always most dangerous at their end.
Right?
I mean, this first of all, you're absolutely right. It is time for Fedor to retire, especially given that the guy he's fighting starched him 3 years ago. Ryan Bader. But Fedor is absolutely a Mount Rushmore candidate. He's been in the game since 2001. So this is 22 years of history. He is a Pride legend. Beat Big Nog, beat Kevin Randleman, beat Mark Coleman, beat Gary Goodridge, beat Mark Hunt, beat Tim Sylvia when Tim Sylvia was still terrifying. Andrei Arlovsky, right? Jeff Monson, Satoshi Ishii, Pedro Hizzo, like really just guys who were legends, 20 years ago. He beat Chael Sonnen in 2018, but he did beat Chael Sonnen. Frank Mir, but yeah, it's if you look at Fedor's record, it was unblemished until 2010 in Strikeforce. He finally took a loss. That's 9 years unblemished. God bless. Gesundheit. And for a long time, and this is really the big question, right? The thing that really, as an MMA fan, I sit back and ponder now is what is Fedor's lasting impact? Where does he rank on the greatest of all time list? Fedor never made it to the UFC. And that was always, and I'm going back 10, 12, 15 years ago. People were calling to get Fedor in the UFC. Could never make it happen with Dana White and Fedor. They could never see eye to eye. So where does he rank in the all-time great list? I mean, he's got wins over the all-time greats, never walked into the octagon.
Yeah, right. The best chance was when UFC bought Strikeforce, right?
Yeah.
That was when kind of they thought that it was going to come and it was going to happen and Fedor was going to make it happen. Him and Dana White have had some beef in the past. I know Fedor has beat UFC legends, but as far as I'm concerned, that's a stain on his career that he didn't fight in the best organization in the world, in my opinion. He says it doesn't bother him, but it's hard for me to say he is the best ever or one of the best ever because he didn't fight. That's like playing in the Euro League and saying you're the best basketball player in the world. He fought a lot of these UFC guys, but at the tail end of their careers, I don't know. He lost a little bit of his lust just because he didn't sign with the UFC, as sad as that is to say, in my opinion. But I mean, he'll be forever great for sure.
Yeah, he'll forever be the boogeyman of the UFC, right? I mean, that was, for those of you who have been a fan for a long time, going back to the early and mid 2000s, right? That was always the question on everybody's mind. All of these UFC heavyweights and light heavyweights and bigger guys like, oh yeah, they're great, but could they beat Fedor? Right? That was
Yeah.
always sort of the refrain back then. And I don't know, he'll always kind of go down as that boogeyman. It'll always be what if, right? What if in 2004, Fedor had signed with the UFC? Who would he have been? I think looking at his resume, I think he would have been a pretty dominant force in the UFC. But then on the other side, I don't know that he would have made it to 2010 being undefeated.
No.
So yeah,
Cain Velasquez would have had something to say about that.
and there was a time where Cain Velasquez was the scariest man in the world.
There are a couple guys during that heyday of when Fedor was in the UFC that were real deal. I mean, JDS was the real deal back then. I mean, Fabricio Verdum was, and Fabricio Verdum was the one to give, Fedor his first L.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about a different tier. I remember not so long ago, Fedor getting knocked out by a Matt Metrione
Yeah.
in Bellator, right? So,
And that was in 2017. So that's 6 years ago now.
yeah, I mean, that's a decent amount of time ago. So, and a super not quality opponent. I mean, don't get me wrong, Matt Metrione's decent, but it's Matt Metrione.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's, if you look at Fedor's last few years, it's just been him beating up other aging legends of the sport, right? Rampage Jackson, Chael Sonnen, Frank Mir, Fabio Maldonado, Pedro Hizzo, going back 10 years to 2012. I think it's time for the last emperor to step away. I think he'll always kind of have that boogeyman effect. It'll always be that what if. But I think your analysis is absolutely correct. I mean, I think had Fedor made it to the UFC, we might feel differently about Fedor. I think we'd always think he was great, but I don't know that he'd be this boogeyman.
Yeah, like kind of a Ben Askren effect. Ooh, that's dark. That's dark, but you never know. UFC is just killers, man. It's just killers. You don't get a night off in the UFC. Bellator, you're gonna fight Tim Johnson one night.
You are, and you'll win at 45 years old. You'll win.
Exactly. So UFC's you're not gonna be able to cherry pick like that. So
yeah, there's absolutely something to be said for that. Have you ever heard about Fedor's brother?
I have. He was like a murderer or domestic abuser, right?
He's like a murderer, rapist in Russia.
Yeah.
Served time in a Russian prison, like a long time in a Russian prison, and I think is out now.
And he used to fight in Pride, right? Or Strike Force.
Something Strike Force or Pride or Ryzen or
it blends.
Something. It all kind of blends. It was some promotion that he fought him. That man might be scarier than Fedor.
Yeah.
That guy's legitimately terrifying, and I think is out in the world right now. I think he's out of jail.
That's good. It's good to know.
check under the bed tonight is all I'm saying. We scare because we care. Yeah. Fun card though. I love this. I love that Bellator has a card on a Saturday night that is honestly more enticing to me than the UFC card. Not because I don't want great UFC cards. I just think that where we are right now, it only benefits fight fans for other promotions to do better, because it means one, you're going to get a better quality of fights outside the UFC, and two, it's going to mean the UFC's got to step it up. So
Perfect, perfect segue into this.
yeah, PFL baby.
PFL putting together a nice little enticing card, right? They
Yeah.
got Marlon Moraes versus Brendan Lawhane.
Oh,
He was a Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series guy
yeah.
who is making strides. Marlon Moraes has been knocked out in his last 4 or 5.
Yep.
At one time extremely promising fighter in the UFC, knocked out Aljamain Sterling, the current UFC champion. They got Thiago Santos versus Rob Wilkinson at 185 pounds, right? Or is that 205? That's actually 205. But PFL, man, making some nice little additions.
They really are. They really are. PFL is, I think more than anybody right now, more than Bellator right now, I think they've got the right idea. You don't want to grab the aging legends and put on these sort of sideshow fights. You want to grab the guys who are unhappy where they are and still have some gas left in the tank for a decent career. Key that comes to my mind is Olivier Aubin Mercier, who I think is currently a champion in PFL, right? He's currently holding the strap, won last season. And that's the other thing PFL is doing great, right? They have these seasons, so it has like a little bit of translation to like a modern sport. I believe PFL does ongoing scoring, right? So the judges don't score it by round, they score it by fight. So you can eke out the first round in what would have been a 10-9. You can eke out, maybe the second, but if you get dominated in the third, you might not win that fight, which is an interesting and unique concept for judging. It's not quite open scoring, but it gets us one step closer, maybe. But there's just PFL's got the right idea, man. They're giving away those $1 million prizes, those $1 million contracts. That's enticing to fighters who maybe aren't happy in the UFC and know that their shelf life is never going to get them to 7 figures over there. I'm keeping a watchful eye on PFL this year to see what they kind of put together, because I think they're coming for that number 2 spot over Bellator, and I think they're going to take it. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, the Jake Paul signing was big, right? They signed him to 5 fights. Just that's going to bring in a whole new slew of viewers. But one thing I will say, here's a little fun fact, the discrepancy in talent. Rob Wilkinson is the current 205-pound champion at PFL. He was Israel Adesanya's debut fight for the UFC. So he was the guy that the UFC brought out for Israel Adesanya to tee off on and have a coming out party on. Yeah. First guy Adesanya fought. He is the current 205-pound champion. And I think Thiago Santos knocks him out too.
I think so. I think Santos wins that fight, but you're absolutely right. I mean, that is, and that is what I remind myself of every time I get really excited about other promotions. I have to remind myself of that fact, right? Like the talent discrepancy is a long way from being closed. That gap is a long way from being closed.
Yeah.
But I think PFL's trending in the right direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Shane Burgos, another guy that they picked up.
Yeah.
They just signed Jorgen De Castro.
Yes.
And he is getting an immediate title shot as well.
Jesus.
An immediate title shot at heavyweight.
Jesus. Who is the PFL heavyweight champ currently?
I do not know his name.
Let's see. I'm gonna hit the Google machine for that one because I want to know.
I mean, I think he's like not a super wide favorite against Jorgen De Castro. So that should really tell you all you need to know.
Ali Isaev.
Exactly.
Is that it? Ali Isaev?
If you told me it was, I believe you, because I could not dispute that.
That's interesting. Did you know that Wiz Khalifa is a part owner of PFL?
No, but that's that's cool.
That's cool. Wiz Khalifa, great rapper, very serious Muay Thai practitioner. Went over to
Very
Thailand for
serious
a
in
while,
quotes.
in quotes, but serious enough. I mean, the dude did go to camp in Thailand and did spend some time with the Thai fighters over there. I mean, I think he is a huge fan of Muay Thai. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely a solid ambassador to bring on to kind of spread the sport for sure.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be watching PFL this year closely, just kind of seeing what they can put together. Because on one hand, yeah, you're absolutely right. The talent discrepancy is still miles wide.
Yeah.
You don't close it in big gaps. You're going to close it piece by piece, right? You're going to close it small signings, right? You're going to close it with the Thiago Santos. You're going to close it with the Olivier Albon Merciers, just brick by brick. They're just sneaking up there. And I think, in a year, 2 years, couple of years, I don't know. I don't know what we're saying about PFL, but it seems like they're on the right path. So I like that. I like what they're doing. They're putting out a better product, I think, than Bellator overall.
Yeah, they just signed Tyron Woodley as a color commentator as well.
Well, that is what it is. That is what it
Oh,
is.
and one thing that we forgot to mention too, that is a pretty big history in the sport, especially for the UFC, is Laura Sanko will be the first women's color commentator ever on a UFC broadcast this
Yeah.
Saturday,
I'm
which is awesome because she's pretty damn good.
she's on the spot with it. I really like Laura Sanko. She's been doing a lot of the legwork with the Dana White Contender Series. I thought she did a phenomenal job. She's a serious practitioner in her own right. She's a jujitsu brown belt. She's smart. I'm excited to see Laura Sanko break out and spread her wings a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's a cool thing for sure. I could definitely hear less of Bisping and Cormier, etc. But yeah, no, that's awesome for the sport. And yeah, that'll be interesting.
Give me your top three UFC color commentators. Who's at the
John
top?
Anik is one.
Yep.
Two, this is probably going to be an unpopular one, but I like Dom Cruz.
Okay.
I just like the way he dissects the game. And then three, it's tough, right? Because you want to say Rogan just because the initial impact Rogan's had on the sport. But I'd probably say Anik, Rogan, and Cruz would be like my powerhouse top three.
Yeah, I'd say probably Anik, Rogan, and I'd probably say Felder. But I think pairing Felder with Bisping a lot of the time takes away from Paul's knowledge. So I don't think.
Elder was my honorable mention.
Yeah, and I think Dom Cruz and Felder, I think both are great analytical announcers. But yeah, I think the DCs and the Bispings, it's I
Yeah.
need less of that. I'd love to see, Felder, Senko, and Anik calling these cards. Obviously, Rogan is stepping away a lot from his calling of cards. He doesn't even do all the pay-per-views anymore, which was crazy when it happened. Because for forever it was Joe Rogan.
Anthony Smith would be a good guy to have too.
Anthony Smith, I think, has done a great job on the post-fight stuff. He's really knowledgeable. I think Chiesa does a good job on the post-fight stuff. He's got a good analytical mind for it.
Lost me there.
I think Chiesa is a good announcer. I really do, and that's not just because he's also probably my favorite UFC fighter. I do think Chiesa does a good job, but yeah, it's Laura Sanko. I think is going to force the UFC to really take a hard look at their color commentary.
Yeah, no, that'll be interesting.
One more little piece of news. We got two more pieces of news. And I don't know yet if I want to share the last one. I don't know. It might get people too excited. But
Game time decision.
News that won't get you too excited, but things that make you go, Super Sage Northcutt. The once promising Ken doll G.I. Joe of the UFC is back, baby.
Making a comeback after facial reconstructive surgery. Right?
Yeah,
This is his first fight back from that.
Don't call it a comeback. Super Sage Northcutt is back.
Yeah, the once prospect in the UFC kind of hyped him up a little bit. Then he got choked out by Mickey Gall.
Sure did.
And everyone knows after you lose to Mickey Gall, it's only downhill from there.
Gotta go.
Damn, here we are. Sage Northcutt, 2023.
3 years later, he's back after getting his shit rocked by Cosmo Alexandre in 2019. Super Sage is getting back on that horse. Yeah, lost to Brian Barberina and Mickey Gall in the UFC,
Yep.
which of course derailed the UFC's plans to make him their it thing.
Him and Paige Van Zandt.
That was it, man. They were America's sweethearts for the MMA community. It was Super Sage and Paige Van Zandt, and
Blonde,
Paige.
blonde hair, blue eyes, just didn't pan out.
It really, yeah, that weird Aryan super plan that the UFC had just did not plan out. It was like it reminded me of a dystopian version of the movie Justin and Kelly. And that's dating myself a little bit, but for the old heads listening like myself, will remember Justin Guarini and Kelly Clarkson from American Idol made themselves a little teen heartthrob, a little summer flick back in the day. This was like the dystopian version of that with Super Sage and Paige Van Zandt. Now, if Sage loses his next fight in one, do you think he follows Paige to OnlyFans?
I could definitely see him on OnlyFans giving out like nutritional advice and like workout. I'm surprised he hasn't already hopped on that train, to be honest.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I think his sister Colby Northcutt is the better fighter of the two of them. I think Colby has had a far better run in one than Sage has. Yeah, maybe PVZ and Super Sage do a little OnlyFans crossover. Paige Van Zandt's OnlyFans content makes her look like, speaking of dystopian things, she looks like a dystopian Linda Hamilton, looking like Sarah Connors dealing with the Terminator sent back from the future.
Yeah, she got thick with 5 C's.
And listen, good for Paige for securing the bag. Good for Paige for getting thick with it. I don't know how I feel about her looking like a weird Sarah Connor, but that's not for me to say and not for me to judge.
Whatever pays the bills, Zach. Whatever pays the bills.
It's just like it 4, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when the UFC was trying to push these two out as America's sweethearts. If you would have told me then that Sage was going to get absolutely demolished in one and Paige would be on OnlyFans, I would have said, yeah,
BKFC. She had a stint at BKFC. She was fucking boxing Beck Rawlings and fucking she lost a bare knuckle boxing match to Rachel Ostovich.
That's upsetting. That's a damn shame.
Like, holy shit. Talk about a fall from grace.
Yeah, but it was, the writing was on the wall from Jump Street. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to share the other piece of news. Nothing's official yet, but for you fight fans, have heard me shout out Gianna Vidino, Killer G. I spoke with Gianna last week. I said, she's been looking for an MMA fight for a while. And motherfuckers out here running scared from Killer G. And I don't blame them, because that is just a murderer. That is an absolute killer. But it looks like she's got an MMA fight booked. She's going to make her MMA debut after winning some hardware on the Muay Thai circuit. I think she's got a Muay Thai fight in March, MMA debut in April. Loves to stay busy, loves to get in the mix. I said, hey, the people deserve it. The people need it. You got to come on the 10A podcast. The people are crying out in the streets for it. And after Sandy Bang Bang Chang just set the standard last week, I think bringing Gianna Killer G on. She said she's down. She said she is down to sit down with the 10-8 boys and chop it up. So look for that announcement in the next, coming months. We'll set something up. Maybe we'll do a special episode. We'll sit down with Killer G. We'll get her perspective on fights and everything else. There was one other thing. This was a fan request from Mike S. Longtime fan, longtime listener, longtime caller.
Mike, the boy,
Mike S. Has a special request. He texted it to me. He wants us to kind of to round the fans out a little bit, to kind of request maybe some content, some stuff to maybe enrich the fight fans, the maniacs, the patients of the asylum, give them a little bit of content they can watch. So I've got my pick of the week, and I'm actually changing it as we're sitting here. But I'm gonna make a recommendation for the fans. Now, it was originally going to be the 1995 documentary Choke about Hicks and Gracie. I'm going to save that. I'm
Wow.
going to do that another day because
This better be good.
of all of the Japanese and Korean talent that the UFC is putting on this weekend, putting on display, I am going to recommend the 1989 epic Best of the Best, starring Eric Roberts, Chris Penn, and James Earl Jones as members of the United States karate team going on to take on the South Korean team.
Damn.
Pick of the week, boys and girls.
I'm shook right now.
If you haven't watched Best of the Best, I think it's one of the best sports movies ever made. It is absolutely incredible. It was at a time where karate was really enjoying a moment in the sun in the 80s. Check out Best of the Best. What do you got, John, for the fans? What's one piece of content that you'd recommend this week?
One piece of content that I would recommend this week. You want to know what I just watched earlier? Alien versus Predator.
Oh, fantastic movie.
Fire movie.
Fantastic. Saw it in theaters.
I had the poster on my wall growing up.
As well you should.
And just got into that a little bit before the pod. Woo!
Love that. Love the energy. Love the
goddamn nostalgic. It's got me flowing. About to watch AVP Requiem, the second one.
I like it. I like it. So fans at home, there's two little things you can do this week that are not UFC or Bellator related. Let us know in the comments if you like this section, if you want us to suggest more things. I've got a million obscure martial arts related things I can recommend to you. And John is absolutely sick to death of me recommending them to him. So last recommendation I made to John was to watch the Iowa Penn State wrestling duels. I got back and I'm good. So fight fans, if you want my knowledge, John doesn't want it. I need someone to give it to. Our legal department has sent me cease and desist letters. If you want it, let us know in the comments and we will bring you more recommendations like that. John Boy, you got anything else for this week?
I know that this card's pretty lackluster. I know that we were, looking for some content, but next week on the horizon, we've got UFC 284 in Perth. Arguably the biggest fight the UFC could make right now, pound for pound, number one, Volkanovski going up to 155 pounds to challenge Islam Makhachev at 155 for the strap. Keep your eyes peeled. We are looking to do a Sunday sit down for that. So we're going to come out early. We're going to come out firing for probably one of the biggest cards of the year. And other than that, I'll let you take it away.
As always, call your mother. Tell her you love her, because we out.
Peace.